Yes, welcome to Automation Awakenings to another brand new episode. And today we are again in our virtual studio, and I'm happy to welcome a very special guest. He's the managing director of Fischer Consulting, and he's the founder and host of the well known podcast Fabrik der Zukunft, Factory of the Future. Welcome, Tobias Herwig.
Hello and welcome from my side. So it's great to be part of your show.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you finally here with us. And yeah, Tobias, let's directly start with the questions.
Yeah, I'm. Let's go.
Yeah, so you are the founder and the host of a well-known podcast, which is called Fabrik der Zukunft, the German word for factory of the future. So, of course, I'm interested now. Yeah, what was the idea behind this podcast? Why have you started it?
Yeah, I started this podcast nearly 5 years ago, so it's quite a long time. And I started the podcast because I like to create my own favorite podcast. So I was used to listen to podcasts in different areas, but in the production and logistics, there were no podcast. And in the German speaking world, yeah. And so I created my own favorite podcast. And the idea was really to inspire myself, yeah, of course, but also all plant managers, production managers, managing directors from manufacturing companies to show them what is possible with technology and also good leadership and yeah, many other things in the factory of today.
Yeah, you're already mentioning it, but from your point of view, what are the main reasons that we need such a podcast right now in our current times?
Yeah, so there are many reasons. So at one hand, I think it's really important to share best practices. So I think that's the most important part, really to get insight into a running production and how do they improve their processes, how they digitize their way, how they produce, and how do they automate it. And I think that's the most important thing for plant managers or managing director of a manufacturing company to see inside another factory or listen inside another factory and see the effects, see what does work and what not. Yeah. So in my experience, if you talk about technology, we on a really high level, but it's always about the question how to adapt technology from my own plant and what is the best practice is most important thing.
Yeah, Tobias, after so many episodes you already recorded, what would you say? What are the key success factors for a really good episode?
So I think it need to be authentic. So that's the most important part. So I like to talk really directly to the plant managers, of that they could talk about their own plant, about the things which works well, yeah, and also about the things which are hard or still hard, and I think that's interesting for everyone. So real authentic insights. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, so I hope we can fulfill this success criteria in our episode today, but we are fully authentic, right?
Of course.
Yeah, great. Let's move to these technologies inside this Fabrik der Zukunft, inside this factory of the future. What would you say? What are the technologies shaping this future?
Yeah. If we talk about a factory of the future, it's all about digitalization automation. So this was the beginning, not only 5 years ago where I started to work on my podcast, but also right now. But if we look a little bit more deeper, we see there are some shifts. Right? If we talk about digitalization today, a really important point is how to really connect the workforce, so the people within the factory, to our digital systems we still have. Or another question is how we could use the data from the machines we connected in the last years and use AI to get completely new insights into our production and how to optimize it on a next level. Yeah. And it's the same with robotic. Yeah. We talked about automation lots of years ago, but it's more and more the question how to automate my production more and more flexible and smart in a way that I could work within this factory with completely different products. So, so the main topics are the same, but the details are really different.
You know, you talked already about some yeah, cool tech. Do you also see technologies that are just completely overrated?
That's a hard question. It depends, yeah. um, um, I think sometimes it's overrated if we talk about AI, yeah, because sometimes it seems like we need to talk about AI all the time. But if I have a look in the factories of today, we see that in lots of factories we need to work on the basics, right? Of course, AI could support, but um, sometimes we have factories where we still need to work on the connection of the machines, yeah, and the data layer and the connectivity and so on. Yeah, it's not the first step to talk about AI. So, of course, the potential with AI is great, but also if we look at the factories, there is big potential without AI, and there are lots of steps to go to use AI in a good manner. So that's, I think, an overrated technology compared to the hype we see right now. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if there are overrated technologies, maybe there are also underrated ones.
Yeah, I think it fits really well to your podcast, but I think mobile robotic is really underrated.
Oh yeah.
Perhaps not in your community, but if I talk to plant managers, I see really a lot of plants without mobile robotics, right? And sometimes they're really big plants. Because in the past they try to really automate the production process. In some cases, it's a really high automation level. But if you have a look at the material flow, this is something in most of the factories which is still really manual. So mobile robotic underrated.
Okay. And of course, now as a mobile robots enthusiast, I'm interested. What are the reasons for that? So how can we help?
Yeah, you could help with your podcast to really show how could it work, how could it look like in a factory. Um, I think sometimes it's a little bit the idea that you need to at first really need to optimize the value add process, yeah. So that means the production, and it's more that you try to reduce, for example, the material flow in total, and not to automate it. And sometimes it's of course not that easy to automate the logistics because you have a lot of interfaces. Yeah, you have the interfaces to uh, all parts of production, and that's something where the people are a little bit scared how to work with these interfaces, but they don't see that the transport itself could be a big benefit as well, and this could be one of the reasons.
Okay. Yeah, let's dive back into AI. Yeah, you mentioned already it's a hype, everyone is talking about it. But from your point of view, where are real applications in your factory of the future where AI already adds value today, or where can we use it?
Mhm. So there are, I think, a lot of areas where we could use AI and where a lot of factories use AI, sometimes for several years. Yeah, if you talk about machine vision, for example, that's a field where we have a really high maturity level. If we talk about image recognition and the use of AI to do so, yeah, and especially if you talk about quality control, that's something which is really mature. So um, ha- you only need a camera. You need to have, of course, a lot of data and the right AI model. And if you train this, you could get really good support to make the quality control completely automated. Of course, perhaps not 100%, but you will get a really high accuracy, and this really supports your quality stuff. Yeah.
When you are now in one of the plants out there and you would like to use this kind of technologies, I mean, we know that there is a certain transformation required, also organizational wise and so on. Now, you had so many colleagues in your podcast, and I'm sure they talked about obstacles, let's say. So,
Mhm.
what would you say? What are the biggest issues, obstacles when I want to implement this AI based quality management, for example, or other new tech?
Yeah, my experience based on the interviews, but also lots of projects in the past, I really see that it's always a big gap between vision and daily business, right? And in my opinion, it's important to have a good way to gap the to bridge the gap. Yeah, of course, you need a strong vision to know where to go, but you also try not to over-engineer and make big projects, but really bring process optimization fast into the factory and do fast pilot projects, fast trial of new technologies, always with the vision in mind, right? And always with process in focus, right? So we need to have a really process-oriented optimization and not a technology-driven one. Because if you have the process in mind, you should have the customer in mind. This really leads to a good effect at the end. Yeah, and that's a common mistake, a common obstacle, let's name it like this. Yeah, that you try to bring new technology into the company, but not with this process orientation. Yeah. For example, someone goes to a fair, sees a nice tool, yeah, and says, "Oh, I like to have this tool in my factory," but that's not without the value. That's not with the value you need to really make a digitalization project effective. Yeah, and that's the same with AI.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, we all know the Logimat, and I think, I mean, it's an awesome exhibition. On the other hand, it might be a big trap, right?
It could be. Yeah, it's good to be inspired, right? So it's the same with the podcast, but you always need to ask, okay, why I'm attracted by these kind of technology. So normally there's a reason behind because we have a problem within the factory, but we need to analyze the process, see is this a bottleneck or not, and how could we solve this bottleneck, and perhaps technology could help. But as I mentioned, sometimes we need to work on the basics. Yeah, it's not always about AI. Sometimes it's always about really classic process optimization, and this could lead to a better process and a higher value at the end.
Yeah, after talking about obstacles, is there a cool success story you can share with us out of your podcast, for example?
Yeah, of course. It's always a question which of all these podcasts to
Yeah.
mention. Yeah, so I think there are really good examples from really big companies and also from really small companies. I'd like to share two. So one is Volkswagen Group. Yeah. Um, really one of the biggest manufacturing companies in Europe. Yeah. And it's always interesting to see how they work on the vision and the overall transformation. But most interesting for me is how they do it in real life. Yeah. And there's one example, it's episode 231, where they really show that they could implement mobile robotic together with a cobot on the mobile robot completely by themselves. Yeah. So with own employees, without integrator, and with short training of really young employees. Yeah. And they did it by themselves to really automate a commissioning process within production of a car. Yeah. And
Cool.
this is a really good example to show that you could use this technology by yourself in lots of cases, of course, not for all cases, and bring this technology in the plant and also bring a big benefit. And they combined it with other tech as well to really have much shorter throughput times, lead times, and yeah, of course, the potential to automate the process, which is in nearly all factories still manual.
Sounds awesome. I'm impressed that you know all the episode numbers by heart.
So that's a really new one because I have
Okay.
right now it's 240 episodes. So yeah, and in another episode is for example, family-owned business, yeah, out of the fast-moving consumer goods. And they also showed how to use mobile robotic within a plant, and they really integrated well into their complete MES and ERP system in a way they really could automate biggest part of their material flow. Yeah, and this was really for me it was great to see that we have really these small and medium-sized enterprises in Germany, which are really on a high level talking about manufacturing, but also at the same time are really on a high level talking about implementation of these technologies. And they use, for example, their HEVs together with S4HANA, and they're really well integrated. And it's a small example, but really powerful.
Cool. Yeah, for sure, we will link both the episodes and the link to your podcast in the caption, so you can directly jump into these exciting episodes. And you touched a very interesting point here in the Volkswagen story, where you said that the internal employees could implement such a brand new tech on their own. So, is this also part of the transformation that employees start integrating such a new tech? So, is this being insourced now, or what do you think? How does it look like?
Yeah, I think, of course, I like to talk about the democratization of the robotics, right? So it's more and more easier to really implement this technology by your own. It's the same with digitalization. So we have low code and no code systems, and I think that's a really powerful technology to really more and more digitize your own process. Okay, you don't should do this for a really end-to-end business process where you really need to have a really stable process. But if you have one process in your team, which is a decentralized local process, I think that's the perfect thing to use low-code software for this. And this really leads to the fact that you could digitize your process without IT department. And that's powerful because we all know in bigger projects that it's hard if you're dependent on an external supplier about your internal department, IT department, or many others. But it's always a question about which process are we working on, yeah, and what's the idea behind. So there are also a lot of processes where you also need to involve, of course, the IT department, external supplier, and where you, for example, need an integrator or an IT consultant or something like that. Yeah. And at the same time, I think it's always a good idea to implement, to involve your shop floor team into process optimization. So it's not a question of digitalization and automation, but also in every process optimization, it's key to involve everyone who is part of this process, because then you are really close to the process and you make sure that this really bring benefit to the operations.
Yeah, this brings me now to several further questions, of course, because you touched another point here, which is change management. Everyone is saying, yeah, sure, you need to take care about change management when introducing new tech, for example, involving shop floor personnel. But now the question is, like in practice, do you have some good practices we can learn from you?
Yeah, so there are different experiences we had in our own projects, and I also had in the interviews. So there are different kind of ways to really integrate the shop floor team into the change. Yeah. So one really simple thing is to involve them into a workshop. Yeah. If you gather the process, do your process mapping, um, work together with the people who are part of the process. If you develop a process vision, yeah, if you look, how could the process look like in some years? Involve the team who's working on the process in daily business. Yeah, it's quite simple, but if you give the possibility to them to design their own process of the future, they're really enthusiastic in bringing this into life, and they really support this. And then it's really easy to do good change management if they're involved from the beginning. Yeah.
I mean, of course, this requires also a new skill set. So if now I'm a manager in such a small, medium enterprise, and I'm thinking to introduce new tech to do this transformation, what would you say? Which skills are required in my team then?
Yeah. Um, yeah, you need new skills, of course, and we also need to talk about the organization. For example, at Fischer, we have a team, we call it Smart Factory team, which is a mix from the IT department and the production. Yeah. So I think it's not that you need all the skills for everyone, but you need to bring the right people together into one team to solve this problem. So that's, I think, the first step. At the other hand, you need to train the people to work with this, kind of workshops, for example. So how to map a process, how to develop a process vision. And of course, if you talk, for example, about low code or no code software, we need to teach them to use the software as well. But my experience is, it's really easy to use this software. So if you're curious to use it, and if you know the potential behind this process, this tool, you like to use it. And we do best practice sharing within Fischer, for example, that we bring all the employees together on every Friday. We call it FPS Friday, so Fischer Process System Friday, where they share small optimizations and bigger projects. For example, like a new optimization with a tool within production. And this is really great for everyone to see, so they get new ideas for their own processes. And this really supports everyone.
Cool. Yeah, Tobias, when I was preparing for this episode, I thought about a very basic question, which is actually not easy to answer, but I thought you are the perfect person for that. How does the factory of the future, let's take 2023, how
Okay.
will it look like? The stage is yours.
Uh, we could talk about a full podcast episode only about this topic. We could talk about, of course, all the things we already mentioned, AI, um, automation, digitalization, and so on. But at first, a really basic thing: the factory of the future need to be efficient, right? So that's the most important part. So that's the reason why we have factories, right? The second part, they need to be really flexible and smart. So this is really linked together, because we are not in a time where you could produce a program which is forecasted 1 year ago and it's still the same. And to do so, we need, all the technologies we talked in this episode. Um, and then we will have different kind of factories. So of course, in the future, we see more and more dark factories. Factories which are really efficient. We will see mega or giga factories, which are really the factory to produce something on the highest level for a really global market. This really depends on the products, of course. So that's one thing. But at the same time, we will see completely other kind of factories. So really local factories, smaller factories, really close to customer and really flexible. So more like a factory. This kind of factory could be with manual people as well, right? So of course automated and supported with digital tools, but still manual. And this also is really important to be close to the market, to be really fast at the same time, and of course to be able to produce a really high variant of product. So, and it depends on this kind of factories. The technologies is completely different.
Yeah, Tobias, will we see humanoids there? If yes, how many and where?
We will see humanoids, of course. We see it in some factories today. But of course, right now we talk about pilot projects, and this will change. I'm not sure about the date, so I don't know it. But I'm sure that we will see humanoids. But I think in most of the cases, we don't need the legs, So if you think about the humanoid use case, um, of course, it's good to have a really clever robot who is capable to be fast trained and flexible used. But why do we use the legs in a factory? So that's the biggest question I have if we talk about humanoids. But perhaps that we see a lot of airs with a cobot on it.
Like at Volkswagen, right?
Right at Volkswagen.
The cobot on the underwriter.
Yeah. But
Okay.
there are some things we need to solve, right? So we talked about AI in a big field, for example, which is still a huge topic, is physical AI. So really to bring AI in the physical world. And we see it at all humanoid companies, but also the robotic companies in total, that this is still is a big issue, yeah, to make the AI capable, interact with the world, understand the world, and use the things around. Yeah.
Yeah, imagine there would be this factory of the future wish that you can just, which can become true um, very easily. What would be your wish?
Oh, so a wish directly for the factories.
Yeah, you could change something immediately. A new tech that is just finished, available, running, or anything else. What will your wish be?
Yeah, I think the biggest impact will have this
Mm-hmm.
physical AI topic. So if we, yeah, it's hard to
Mm.
say to solve it, yeah, but if we on another level for this topic, I think we will see a lot of other automation use cases within the factories. Yeah, if automation, if robotic comes more flexible and adaptive. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Tobias, before we come to an end of this podcast, I have one final question because I know that, I mean, you are a curious person. I know that you are running several initiatives and projects all in parallel. What's the next big Tobias Herwig thing?
Hmm. There is no big thing right now planned or in the roadmap. Um, I I I launched something new on
Mm-hmm.
the new year. Yeah, so Factory of the Future Navigator. I think that's something really new. Um, but it's already published, so it's the way to use AI to find the best episodes out of more than 200 exactly for your
Okay.
needs. So that's a combination out of podcasting and AI.
That sounds amazing. Can we use this for our podcast as well?
Let's talk about. Why not? I will take. I could tell you
Cool.
how it
Yeah,
works.
really exciting. Yeah, thanks for sharing this, and thank you for sharing all these exciting insights out of these 200 plus episodes. Yeah, that was really cool, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. We will see each other in 2 weeks latest, again on Monday, with another episode of Automation Awakenings. And thanks again, Tobias Herwig, for this awesome episode.